says that intuition is spirit knowing itself. I like that line. Intuition is spirit knowing itself. So the definition of intuition is the state of being aware of or knowing something without having to discover or perceive it. And this is an innate ability that we all have. And then we get acculturated out of it. We get acculturated out of paying attention to our intuition, to knowing without any sort of perception that's discovered or perceived. So I'm going to share a story with you about my personal experience with intuition. I wouldn't say that I'm that much of an intuitive. However, this one experience was sort of a classic for me. And I call it my trip in hell. So my boys were early teens and they were speed skaters. And so we traveled in East Texas a lot in my blue Cadillac Eldorado. I mean, I was such a typical Texas mom. I didn't have the big hair, but I schlepped that Eldorado Cadillac through the dark piney woods of East Texas with, my kids called me Bombs Away Becky. But it happened that we were going to a skate meet in Plano, Texas. And you're not surprised to know that I got lost going to Plano, Texas. And I took a wrong exit, and I ended up looking at my map, because I didn't have GPS, and many of you know I can't read a GPS anyway. So we were in this park in Fort Worth, or whatever it is, next to Dallas, Fort Worth. And I was looking at my map, trying to figure out where in the world I was, and where in the world I was going to go, when my son Hale said to me, "Mom, that man's raping that woman." Huh, sure enough, that's what was going on. So I honked my horn, and another fellow came and interceded, and that was incident one of my trip in hell to Texas, Plano, Texas. So then the boys had left a can of pop up on the back of the back window, and in the heat it exploded, and it sounded like a bomb going off. It's like, and cola spread all through my lovely Cadillac Eldorado. So we went to the meet. Oh, we didn't get to the meet very easily, because when we came out of the motel, my tire was flat. So I had to call AAA, and the tire was, I couldn't repair it, I had to replace it. Third experience. So we went to the meet. They did well. Nobody hurt themselves. They didn't break anything, and I thought we were really way ahead of things. And then they had a bunch of friends that they wanted to bring back to the hotel with them, and they were going to swim, and I thought that was okay. So as we were getting onto the on-ramp going to our hotel, someone banged us in the back of the car. Now this is where my story of intuition kicks in, because I looked in the rearview mirror and the boys are screaming, "Mom, you gotta stop, we've had an accident." And I didn't. There was something not right. something just felt wrong to me. So I kept driving. And they're yelling and screaming. And I watched this car take a turn through a mall and then get back on the freeway. Well, when we got back to the motel, you can imagine I was thinking, what a trip. So the boys went swimming, and I curled up in the bed in the motel and turned on the news. And there was a news warning that the police were looking for a car because a man had been shot at that very ramp. Somebody had bumped into the back of him, and when he got out of the car, he was strafed with bullets. I really came to a place to trust my intuition, because I know that would have been me had I stopped and gotten out of the car. So all of the other stuff aside, the rape and the explosion and the flat tire was of no consequence really, because I felt so blessed to have had paid attention to my intuition. And just reminding you that we all know it. You don't need to learn it, you just need to remember it. According to Sophie Burnham, who is the author of the book, The Art of Intuition, one study that she quoted that they found that there were fewer passengers than usual who rode the train on the days of a collision. Fewer people were on the train when the train had a collision. That isn't fascinating to me. She also said that on 9/11, 79% of the seats on the 4 planes involved in the attacks were unoccupied. 79%. That's like 1 in a million odds. American Airlines Flight 11 had room for 168 passengers, she said, but only 92 were on board. United Flight 175, likewise with a space of 168 people, had only 65 seats occupied, and 61% vacancy rate. And the Boeing 757 that crashed in Pennsylvania was 80% unoccupied. That's astonishing to me, that high percentage of people received some kind of intuitive hit and didn't get on a plane that was planned. That to me is an amazing thing. So I'm talking about nurturing our intuition, since we all have it, but we so often tend to ignore it or disregard it when we get a hit. So what are some of the things that we can do to actually increase our awareness of our innate ability to perceive without knowing how we know? The first and most important, I think, skill or practice that we can have is to meditate. Because meditation raises our vibration and puts us in alignment with that essence, the universal, the knowing. The high vibration leads us into that doorway where we can pay attention to the information that we're receiving. It's like all channels are free and clear, and the doors are open to listen to our intuition. So that's the number one most important spiritual practice for so many things, but the number one spiritual practice for nurturing our intuition. And the second thing is just to listen and feel. So, for instance, when we meet people for the first time, just listening to what they have to say and paying attention to the feel that you receive from them. What kind of hit do you get off of them? Listening and feeling. Because intuition is a feeling. It's not an intellectual practice. We don't think our way into intuition. We feel our way into intuition. And we absolutely can know and respond to people from that feeling place. And then paying attention to your dreams would be the third way that you can nurture your intuition. 50% of all non-cognitive information comes to us through dreams. So when you awaken in the morning, just paying attention to what came up in your dream state. What did you receive messages about? And if you journal, which I strongly recommend you do, no matter what, meditate and journal are two of the spiritual practices I really recommend. But journaling what your dreams were about. What came up for you in your dreams? You know, Abraham Lincoln really paid attention to his dreams. And 3 days before his assassination, he reported that he had had a dream that he had been assassinated. Wow. So, paying attention to your dreams, can you imagine what the world would be like, what would have happened to this country if Abraham Lincoln had given his intuition more credibility and paid more attention to his dream? So also, just paying attention to your hunches. Your hunches are like little mini nudges. Pay attention to those and notice when they're fruitful for you. When you get a little push, a little nudge toward going in one direction rather than the other, just noting that and paying attention. And if it's a strong feeling, really give it your attention. Because some part of you is trying to tell you something. And remembering that Ernest Holmes said, intuition is spirit knowing itself. Your little hunches are little God whispers, little divine whispers, reminding you to pay attention. So it can be that our intuition is sort of just like a quiet voice in the forest that's sort of whispering to us. But the more that we listen to it, the more we pay attention to it, the louder that voice becomes. And the louder that voice and the more powerful it will be to direct you. It's as if you're saying, okay, I'm going to give you attention that you need. Paul McCartney heard a tune in his head, and it was so complete that he thought maybe it was something that he had heard someone else play, and he didn't exactly trust it. So what he did was he started playing it for other people, and no one had heard it before, and he decided that it was his. And that song was Yesterday. It came to him in a dream, full blown, and he didn't trust it until he had tried it out and practiced it on other people. So, if you have a problem or an issue that you're looking for an answer for, that you're not sure what to do about it, I have this suggestion, and that is, before you go to sleep at night, just ask. Ask that part of you, that intuition, or ask the divine to help you come up with a solution. And 9 times out of 10, when you awaken in the morning, the solution will be available to you. Now, where does that come from? It comes from spirit, speaking to spirit. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from within. A combination of all of those things. So your dreams will be very helpful to you. As I said, we all have it. We all have that innate ability to know without knowing how we know. Some of us went to the food truck Friday, and there was Kate and BC had their dog there, and it was watching all the dogs go by, and suddenly there was one that it responded to, and it was barking and going on. And there was conversation about help me with his name. Baxter. Why would Baxter respond to this one dog when all others had gone by? And I said, maybe it wasn't the dog he was responding to. Maybe it was the owner. I used to have this Chesapeake Retriever, which is what made me think of it. I used to have this Chesapeake Retriever, Cherry. Cherry loved everyone. Loved everyone. She would just get out of the yard any way she could possibly get out of the yard and go love up on people. Now, I don't know whether you're familiar with the Chesapeake Retriever, but that's not a tiny little dog. She explored the neighborhood, loved everyone, till this one guy came. This one guy who was a friend of my sister's. And Cherry went ballistic. And we were, so sorry. So sorry. She never does that to people. I don't know, what could be the possibility that, why would she do that? Well, here's why she did it. Come to find out that this fellow had been telling everybody in that crowd of folks that he was a pre-med student. And my sister had a cough in her chest. And this fellow stuck his head next to his ear, next to her chest, on her chest, and was listening, said, "Oh, she's fine. Nothing wrong with her." Well, it turns out that she had pneumonia. And this guy was a pathology lab assistant or some such thing. And he was passing himself off as a pre-med student. We all bought into his story, except for Cherry. Sherry knew the difference, and she wasn't having any part of it. So we all have that same sort of intuitive ability. We all have that knowing, but we tend to allow culture, society, to talk us out of it and say to us, oh, intuition has no reality. Intuition does have reality. That is the reality. So, just a reminder of the steps to nurture your intuition. Number 1 is to meditate. I recommend that to everyone, always. The number 1 spiritual practice. The second is to listen and feel. Pay attention to what you feel. And listen with a heart open rather than a closed heart. And pay attention to your dreams. Something like 75% of all new innovations come through the dream state. That's really powerful. Pay attention to your hunches. Keep track of your hunches. Journal what comes up for you. And notice when your hits are correct. And then, of course, keep a journal. And remembering that Ernest Holmes says, intuition is spirit knowing itself. Here's what I know. I love you all. Namaste. So I would invite the practitioners and the minister to join me as we hold this community in consciousness. Just want to remind you that these people have been trained 4 or 5 years of training to know how to know the truth for you. So we have our box of prayer requests. Thank you, Kate. So you can just drop a prayer request in the box and trust that these lovely practitioners will hold you in prayer for a week. It's like a gold key to get your situation or circumstance. So just join with me as I know the truth. That there is one power, one presence, one source, one force that I call God. Feel free to call it anything you want. It, the thing itself, George, it doesn't matter what name you give it. It is love. And it is wisdom. I absolutely acknowledge that I am knowing, expressing, and that when I keep my heart open, when I keep my mind open, that the doors are all open and the channels are all free, and the whole wide universe says yes to me. That whatever I need, the answers flow to me. Whatever knowledge or wisdom that I need is available to me. That when I stay available and present to the wisdom of the universe, there is the interactive conversation of God speaking to the God within me. All that I need is available to me. All of the wisdom and the information and the path to everything I need is available to me. this moment, I give thanks that the universal essence guides and directs me powerfully, that has all of the solutions and all of the answers that I need, is protecting me, is directing me, is showing me the ways and the means to heal every circumstance and situation in my life. I know that when I step forward, when I open myself, all of the guidance and the direction that I need to live a full, rich life is available to me at this moment. And I do my share. I trust the wisdom and the knowledge and the information that I receive, and I act on it. And I know that when I do that, my life unfolds in grace and in peace, in dynamic interaction with all that is good. And I absolutely trust the law that takes my word and flows it back to me fulfilled, because that is the divine in action. And so, with gratitude, knowing that because I have seen it, because I've felt it, because I've spoken it, because I have declared it, it is done. And I give thanks for it. So I get myself out of the way. I step out of the way and I allow God. So in gratitude, I say, and I invite you to join with me by owning it for yourself. So it is, and amen.